Hey YouTube. So real quick, this is going to be another VR to Steve, Corsair trainer, or really just the EMP thought exercise. Like last time, not so much answering Steve questions, but answering my own as well, and maybe hopefully some of yours, and get you thinking, answering your own questions. But the EMP scenario we've made at home. This is after the first 8 hours, and like I said, I would spend most of that time coming home. Hopefully they are getting things tight, figuring out what's going on that end, talking to the neighbors, a lot of information sharing there or whatever, seeing what's going on, and just really just going about minimizing water usage, seeing where you can store water where you can, things like that. A lot of things have to go on. We're going to have to think about that a little bit too, like in the interim, with some actions that would need to be done. But Steve also talks about when he gets home, getting into a routine, because in his scenario he's waiting for his wife to get home, and it's kind of the opposite here. So they're going to be doing things while what Steve's talking about they're going to be doing here probably while I'm waiting to get home. It's all well and good. We talked about keeping the kids in routine. That's pretty important, right? Keeping them on a baseline and not getting them too shook up, but still the need to address the reality of the situation that hey, things are a lot different. They could be a lot different for a long time. We don't know, but just understand, don't give false hope. But in particular, one of his questions was toilet paper. How much do you have? There's toilet paper. But this time last week, we didn't have that. We just got that after we went to the store last week. We may have had 10 rolls of toilet paper in the house when we went to the store. So it's one of those constant fights of, hey, sometimes you're bonus plus good on resources. Sometimes you get outcycled. But that's where we stand right now, which is good. But if you had talked to me last week, we'd have been in pretty bad shape. But we do have the little bit extra that we put in food storage, but that just is a little bit less buffer on those ends. He also talked about what do you have for a power outage kit. And I wouldn't say we have like a kit. Now we have a cabinet of candles. We have a drawer of batteries. We have flashlights located in certain places. So, we have some of those things, but not like a kit. But where do you keep your things? Do you know where those things are? Do they work? In particular, flashlights. You talked about generators. Generators may or not necessarily work in an EMP, depending on how big and everything else. But I definitely want, as soon as I get home, figure everything, get information, but checking things like generators and stuff would be on the docket, right? But with the power being out, I definitely have to share this in the morning, because otherwise there wouldn't be any light to see by, so I wouldn't be videoing in the dark, or I guess I could, but it would be dark, right? But adjusting to the new normal, you find those resources, you find out where you're at on your baseline, and he put an emphasis on not going straight tactical in your security posture, which is definitely, you're probably, you're not going to be throwing on chest rigs and stuff. But security is still paramount. Not to underemphasize security, it's still going to be important to know what's around your perimeter and what's not. Obviously, my situation is a lot different than Steve's. I only see about a half dozen neighbors on an average day, and I probably wouldn't see that many. Or I should say, I'd see pretty much everybody once this thing broke out. But after that first night, I think it's a good idea, like he said, to get your last good night's sleep probably. And after hiking all day, moving and gathering information, I probably would be up for some rest and get up this next morning and listen and look around. What's moving, what's not. On an average day, there's still nothing moving around this early in the morning. So I wouldn't really necessarily get a whole lot. There's animals and the neighbors' chickens and neighbors' horses and everything else are still going to be making noises. But this is, power up, grid up day, and it's still pretty quiet. How quiet it's going to be when the power goes out. But we're looking for observing things that are different and out of the ordinary. And just seeing who is out and about, and seeing what's changed, and still checking security. You know, like he says, you don't want to go straight to deploying all your firearms and going into security, and your security posture is definitely going to be important, but you're not going to go to things like that right away, and you shouldn't. You really shouldn't change your profile much at all. You're carrying a concealed sidearm is easy. That's not really going to change most people's impression. But check my notes here real quick. Going into that second day, he talks about going up to about noon, really just checking around, checking with the neighbors, seeing if everybody's good, if everybody needs anything. You talk about maybe shared food storage. Refrigeration's going to be an issue. If we can get generators going, and how much fuel do we need to share? Are there common fuel issues with gas or diesel with the immediate neighbors nearby? That what can you do to maximize each other's benefit? I was having the discussion after the last scenario about using firearms, and really I was wondering what your ROEs would be in that respect, especially in a state like California, Connecticut, where you're severely restricted, but people have a lot of things that may be on the list, but they have in case of a time just such as this. Your decision making on when you decide to deploy those things and bring them out into the public's eye is going to be one thing that you need to think about. Again, don't just break them out just because it's power's out, because you don't know how big if it's a you're pretty solid it's an EMP of some sort. But like where Steve is, it could be very localized. It could just be in the LA area and the rest of the country is unharmed. It'll take you a while to figure that out. It could take a couple days. But for the rest of us, like out here, like I said, if it's hit us, it's hit a lot bigger area, probably, more than likely. But if you are, again, in one of those restricted areas, the problem is, when do you show your cards? Don't just whip them out, I think was kind of the discussion line we were going with. Like, yeah, you've got your toys and you've got things that are very useful, but in their restricted status, if you break them out and things return to normal fairly quickly, somebody's going to be like, hey, this guy's got this over there, like he shouldn't have that. And somebody goes and turns you in or whatever. You don't want to get into that situation. So judiciously make those decisions, and especially in those areas. But really, I can walk around, here in my area with a sidearm or whatever, which I do fairly regularly, walk around the property, and it's not a big deal. And maybe for this, I would up my game to a shotgun or something. I could carry the .22 more regularly, even though I carry it around sometimes, mostly at night when I'm looking for on the coyote watch thing. I carry around the .22, but you can carry it around the daytime. Not a big deal. Just keep it low, keep it at the side, one-armed carry. Nobody'd hardly even notice. Well, here, because everybody's so far away to a certain extent, they wouldn't stand out for a while. In a neighborhood, whole different problem. Carrying concealed is probably your best option until needed otherwise. So don't go straight to DEFCON 5 just because the power's out. And you got to gather a lot more information. We would have gathered a lot more information for this, and on the route, on the walk home, for sure, figuring out who has starting vehicles. How bad are the stores? Are the stores getting cleaned out? Are things orderly at that point? What would I have to report back with? What would I be able to take home and go, okay, this is our situation, and apply that the next day, and kind of just start expanding operations once I have a lot of information. Share it with others. Or really just observe and just go through our daily routine, feed animals, and seeing how we're figuring out how we're going to continue that. Probably have to figure out a food storage plan, and what's refrigeration going to look like. It would be biggest concerns: food spoilage, and maybe just break out the grills and have a big cookout with the neighbors. Might be the best solution, because you don't want everything in the freezers to go bad, and refrigerators, so you could cook that first. Got a lot of food on the hoof, and we could have a butcher party because feed's going to start going low pretty quick. We're going to have to minimize the herd, so do that and share the wealth as needed. You're going to be able to gain a lot of points, I guess, with the neighbors or whatnot, stuff like that. Any resources like that you have that you can share that you know are going to go bad anyway. Build up a lot of that with the neighbors by doing that. So some things to think about. Don't just think you have to keep all your cards close to your chest. Steve kind of talked about that. Like, yeah, I guess some people do think like that, and I guess it's on the YouTube, but you know, no man is an island, and a lone wolf is just going to die a lone wolf eventually. No matter, you might survive for a period, but you're not going to thrive. And thriving is what it's all about, and it takes people in the community to thrive. So just some thoughts on part 2 there by Steve. Go check it out. It's just makes you think. So talk to you later, YouTube. Live free.